Recent reports indicate that President Donald Trump has announced he is barring South Africa from participating in the 2016 G20 summit, which the US is hosting in Miami, Florida. This decision follows a diplomatic disagreement, including the US boycotting the recent G20 summit in South Africa, and South Africa refusing to hand over the G20 presidency to a junior US embassy official at the closing ceremony.
US President Donald Trump, who skipped this year's summit, posted on social media that the United States will not invite South Africa to next year's G20, which is set to be hosted in Miami. In his post, Trump claimed that South Africa had refused to hand over the G20 presidency to a US embassy representative during last week's summit. He further wrote, and I quote, "Therefore, at my direction, South Africa will not be receiving an invitation to the 2026 G20, which will be hosted in the great city of Miami, Florida next year," unquote.
After Trump's announcement, a statement was released by the presidency in Pretoria.
It is regrettable that despite the efforts and numerous attempts by President Ramaphosa and his administration to reset the diplomatic relationship with the U.S., President Trump continues to be vindictive and seek to apply punitive measures against South Africa based on misinformation and distortions about our country.
It will be interesting to see whether the other BRICS nations will join together and pressure America into allowing South Africa to participate in the next G20. Or at least, if worse comes to worse, boycott the summit entirely if South Africa is excluded. Because if they don't do that, it will basically boil down to that African American saying, they want our rhythm, but not our blues. BRICS should not act in a way that reinforces the stereotype that everyone wants what they can gain from Africa, but will not stand with Africa when the chips are down. This type of situation is not unprecedented. 21 African nations boycotted the 1976 Montreal Olympics in protest against New Zealand's sporting links with apartheid South Africa. The boycott was a response to the IOC, International Olympic Committee's refusal to ban New Zealand after its national rugby team toured South Africa, defying United Nations calls for a global sporting embargo. The New Zealand National Rugby Union team toured South Africa in 1976 despite the invitation to boycott the regime. The IOC refused to ban New Zealand from the Olympics, prompting 29 African nations to withdraw. So if the BRICS nations truly consider South Africa an equal partner, the first thing they should do is pressure the US to reverse its decision, and then boycott the G20 if America doesn't. Otherwise, they are simply using South Africa for their own selfish gain.